Thank you so much, everybody, for being tuned in. Thank you so much for joining the broadcast. Tonight, we're having a candid, interesting discussion tonight. Why am I still single? Am I doing something wrong? And I'm telling you, tonight, I got some special guests that's going to break this topic down. I'm sure they're going to be candid, they're going to keep it real, and we're going to have a good time discussing this topic. And so right now, I'm going to give my special guests a chance to introduce themselves. And after they introduce themselves, and then we're going to go right into the discussion. So glad to have you on tonight. Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining. Thank you so much. Glad to have you on. And so we are ready. We are definitely tuned up. And I know everybody is excited right now to have this discussion. And so I am going to start from the bottom to the top. We are going to start with Dr. Elena, and she's going to introduce herself.
Hello, good evening. My name is Dr. Elena Walker. I'm from Dallas, Texas. That's where I'm from. I don't spend a lot of days here anymore, but that's where I'm from. And I have empowered. Walker is one of my businesses. I am a public speaker, empowered speaker. And then another one of my businesses is Sunshine Travels for Life. And so that's pretty much it for now. And so
All right, let's go to Rochelle. Glad to have you, Rochelle. Glad again to have you, Dr. Elena. So glad to have you. Thank you so much for joining the broadcast. And go ahead and introduce yourself, Rochelle.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Sure. Yeah, we can hear you good.
Okay. Yeah. So I work full time with children who have incarcerated parents. So I work in the incarceration sector, and then I have a ministry, apologetics in the city. So I am an apologist. I went to seminary for apologetics, and I'm a friend of yours. So I'm here, speak my piece.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Glad to have you, Rochelle. And so, yeah, definitely check out her website. And I'm sure she give that to you guys at the end of the show. But let's go back up to the top. The brothers, go ahead, Gabe.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Gabe Abram. I am the founder of Plugged In Ministries. We just do short exhortations about the life and ministry of Jesus Christ and how it applies to us daily. And I work in human resources, and I also cut hair as well. I'm a barber out here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So if you know anybody that is looking for reliable barbering services, definitely feel free to refer me and send them my way. So looking forward to collaborating with everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gabe, for being a part of the discussion. Once again, glad to have you as well. And yes, sir, my man, JB.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jared Bogarty. I am your local moderator of your many favorite chat rooms and chat groups and YouTube channels. I'm also a host of my own YouTube channel called Lost in Translation Podcast, where we actually have discussions about relationships, family, and religion. So glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Glad to have you on tonight as well, JB. As always, glad to have you all. And everybody who's tuned in, thank you so much once again for being tuned in. And listen, I want you to make your comments known. If you're feeling what somebody is saying, if you agree with what somebody is saying, definitely make it known in the comments. We want you to be interactive. We want you to let us know how you feel about everything that's being said in this particular topic. And so my name is Elder Tamel Brown. I am an elder in the Church of God in Christ. I'm also establishing my own ministry called Fruit Bearer Ministries. Also, I am a singer, songwriter, and of course, I do live discussions and podcasts. And so my goal is to bridge the gap of communication between men and women so that we can get more of an understanding of one another and to also comprehend one another, because I'd like to see more successful relationships, especially when it comes to Black people. So that's what's up. And so we're going to go ahead and get right into the discussion. I know you guys are ready. I know that you have been anticipating this discussion. And once again, thanks. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. So the first question tonight, just to spark things, just to get things going tonight, is anybody can jump in. I'm not going in any particular order. So anybody who'd like to start first, definitely jump in there. question is, what is one of the main reasons you believe you are single? Or what is one of the main reasons you believe some people are single? And so please explain, and anybody can jump in there and answer that question.
Ladies first, y'all go ahead.
Well, chivalry is dead. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, yeah, like, well, I'll just be transparent. That's just how I am. For me personally, meeting men is not an issue. Never has been an issue. It's first and foremost that I have chosen abstinence until marriage, hands down. And obviously, it's very rare to find somebody who agrees to do that. But then also, for like, say if 5% of men in the church make that decision, now in that small 5%, you have to find somebody who's compatible and who, is age appropriate, et cetera, et cetera. And then for me, the second would be age, because I turned 44 this year. And so, there's guys who don't realize that when they meet me, but they want a family. And at 44, that's just probably naturally not going to happen. And so for me, it's easy. But I think with a lot of people, it's I think the marriage thing, a lot of it is obviously commitment on the part of men who haven't made the abstinence decision. So without that, it's just kind of like, why would I enter into this until I'm ready to have kids? And then with women, it might be being too choosy or being too needy and not being, as attractive to the person they're dating. So it's a whole range.
Yeah, anybody else can jump in there, but I think that Rochelle makes a great point. I think some ladies are in that same situation, and we'll get into that a little bit more, especially concerning abstinence, and how I know sometimes when men hear that, or when women hear that, especially if you're living a Christian life, trying to please the Lord and with your body and to be honorable, I know that it's not appealing to everybody, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the discussion. Definitely appreciate that transparency and that candidness. So, yeah, definitely, I feel you. I feel you on that, Rochelle. Anybody else want to jump in there concerning this particular question?
Well, I guess I'll jump in. Since the ladies have gone first, I will jump in. But Dr. Alina, I think you were going to say something, or you?
Yeah, I had a few comments. Can y'all hear me? Okay. So yeah. So what is one of the main reasons that I'm single, right? Okay, so wait. I'm just being obedient. I need to wait. Wait for my purpose partner. Purpose partner. That's what I'm doing. To be transparent, I've been married and I'm legally divorced. I like to make sure it's known that I'm legally divorced, because it's a whole lot of people, like I just mentioned, I'm being transparent. It's a whole lot of people that are saying they're single, but they're not really single. Single is not married. Single is not you separated, but you still married. Single is you not married. I'm legally divorced. And I'm waiting. I've been legally divorced for almost 10 years. Now, in that time, I have been dating, and I actually have been engaged. And I decided, and well, not me, God decided I needed to still wait. And so that's what I'm doing for a purpose partner. Because if I would have proceeded with that, I honestly most likely would have been miserable. Because my purpose is part of my purpose is encouraging, empowering others to, walk out their faith, live and do things that they want to do with their life, not what somebody else wants them to do. And part of my purpose is traveling and encouraging others to go out here and venture in this world. And so that relationship that I was in would have set me down more, most likely. Or it would have been another divorce, actually. It wouldn't have said, it would have been another divorce. I would have had another legally divorce under my belt because I was not being obedient. I was not, but that didn't happen. So I feel like most important reason that I'm still single right now is because I'm waiting for a purpose partner. So let me break that down real quick. Waiting does not mean I'm sitting in a house waiting. I bop around this world. I'm not sitting in the house waiting for UPS or Amazon or anyone to come to the door. Waiting for me is out here doing what I need to do for my purpose and to enjoy my one life. That's waiting for me. Waiting for me is not just sitting in a house. So waiting for me is still doing what I feel like I should be doing to be fulfilling my purpose. So when that purpose partner comes, we join together as one and we have a purpose together. That's what waiting for me is. Waiting for me is not just sitting in the house. So that's all I have.
Well, I'll go ahead and I'll just go. So me, I am not single. I am in a loving relationship, and no, there's not a beam being pointed at my head while I say this. So no, it's all good. But no, on a serious note, no, I'm not single, but I can attest to why some people may still be single. And I will say, I'll start with this. Number one is unrealistic expectations, and that's not just from a standpoint of women, because some men have some very unrealistic expectations as well. What do I mean by that? Okay, so you want a man who makes six figures, but you aren't coming even close to that, and so how do you get yourself in the vicinity to meet somebody that is going to be in that, even in that income bracket. Number two, for example, if you're a man and you want a woman that's fit, that's feminine, and that's friendly, as the late great KS would say, you're not taking care of your body. You're not taking care of who you are and what you have to do as a man. So how are you going to attract and to keep the attention of a woman who exemplifies those things? I think that those are things that we have to consider. I also believe the reason why people are single is because because of indoctrination and bad teaching. Not to say that that what everything that we learn in church or through our social circles is bad, but some of that we have to learn how to chew the meat and spit out the bones. Third, I will say that some people may be single because they may have gotten themselves in a situation that just wasn't right for them. I'm a believer in the scripture where it says, "In all of your ways acknowledge the Lord, and He'll direct your path." But many times we try to direct our own path, and we find ourselves being in situations and with people that are not really good for us or not good for where we are going. And so, as you were saying, Doctor, that weight, that weight is not comfortable. It takes a long time sometimes, but I do believe sometimes that we derail our weight by and prolong it by making decisions without God. And I've been there, and I say that from my own personal testimony. I've been there, and I've made some really bad decisions in my life. I've also made some really good decisions in my life. But I'll say that really, when it comes to people being single, that those are three of the main things that I believe help to prolong people's singleness.
And as for me,
Oh,
here's the
Lord.
deal. I know why I'm single. I'm single because I have a mandate for my family. You know what I mean? I have a blueprint that I have to follow. You know what I mean? And I see a lot of things in this world. I know how to talk to people, and I know how to listen, more importantly. And I know what works for me. You know what I mean? Like my grandfather before me had his path, and he did what he was supposed to do, raise his family. My father before me, had his family. He did the same thing. So for me, I'm not going to dishonor them by just doing whatever. You know what I mean? And it takes patience. And Rochelle, I commend you because I'm in the same walk as well. A lot of times women don't believe that men wait as well. And the wait is not easy. I'm here to tell
Right.
you. I'm just being real. that wait is something else. But at the
It's
same time, what
hard.
it does, it teaches you to make sure that you pay attention to the small things. If you eliminate that portion of the conversation, then you can pretty much see, what that person's real purpose is. I always tell people all the time, know your why. You know what I mean? And also know somebody else's why, because that why is going to teach you the direction of that particular relationship or what's important to that particular person. And if for some reason you guys are not on the same wavelength, it's okay. A lot of times people don't know how to walk away. They always feel like they're obligated to stick around for the after party, but you don't have to. You know what I mean? Let that person go ahead and do what they got to do. You know what I mean? You want to do it the way you want to do it. That's fine by me. But as for me and my house, we got a set of rules that we have to live by. Now, here's my whole thing. The reason why a lot of people I feel like are single is because a lot of people are looking to take from relationships versus give to relationships. That energy is different. You know what I mean? That polarity is different. Whenever you look to serve somebody, that is actually what marriage is all about. When you two come together and you serve one another, that is the missing ingredient in a lot of relationships. If you ever listen to the reason why a lot of people divorce, it's because they didn't get something out of it. You know what I mean? And we don't pay attention to stuff like that. Always make sure when you get with somebody, make sure that they have a heart for God, number one, because that's going to let you know that person knows how to serve. Anybody who's in the church, anybody who loves God, anybody who loves Jesus, they already know that Jesus is probably the greatest server of all time. You know what I mean? He looked to serve people. And you always want to develop somebody who has a heart for God, somebody who's going to listen to God, because sometimes you're going to need to talk to God when you can't talk to your spouse. And sometimes your spouse is going to need to talk to God when they can't talk to you. You see what I'm saying? So it gives you an opportunity to make sure that everything stays on the same level playing field. I'm going to pray for you. You pray for me. I'm going to look out for you. You look out for me. Like I said, the marriage vows, to death do us part. You know what I mean? Forsaking all others, for rich or for poor. You know what I mean? All of that good stuff is there for a reason. And my thing is the reason why a lot of people are not successful in relationships is because they don't, number one, put God first. You know what I mean? And number two, they always put themselves first. Now, here's the thing. There's a thing about self-preservation. I don't have a problem with that. But God does not give us the spirit of fear. You know what I mean? And if you're plugged into him, then there shouldn't be any of that. And he'll give you time. He'll give you the fruits of the spirit to listen and to understand exactly where you're coming from, where this other person is coming from. If you pay attention, you spend enough time, he'll let you know that ain't the right one. They're not listening to you. They're not going to be obedient. You know what I mean? That type of thing. So those are some of the small things that you have to develop first before you even enter into a relationship. Remember, when you take on a spouse, you're taking on a child of God. And that is God's child. He's giving you the honor and the responsibility of making sure that you take care of that person until death do you part. So I think that's the main reason why a lot of relationships fail, is because they put everything else in the world ahead of their spouse, and they don't listen and they don't love the way it should be loved.
I think those were great answers, great perspectives from everybody. So I just want to get some key points about what everybody said. I know that Rochelle was saying that abstinence is one of the main reasons why, she may be single and some others, because a lot of men are willing to wait. I know Gabe was talking about unrealistic expectations, and I know what Dr. Lena was just saying, that she's waiting on her purpose partner. It's important, to be obedient to the Lord God. And I know what JB was saying, he got a mandate for his family. There's just some things that when, coming together to be in a relationship with JB that he expects. And there's nothing wrong with having expectations, but I do agree that you got to make sure that those expectations are realistic expectations. As far as I know, Gabe was giving an example, some good examples of that as well. And I'll go into some other things in a little bit, but I want to jump into the second question, because now it's going to get a little bit deep, and we're going to kind of get into kind of the psychology of some of the things that's taking place within our minds because of certain things. But I wanted to ask this question, because I think this is an important question, because I think this does have a lot to do with the way some people may feel, because we are Christians. Most, all of us on this panel are Christians. We have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And even though we're Christian, we're talking to everybody. I think that everybody can be encouraged or be edified through the things that we're saying. And I also think it's going to take a mentality switch. I think sometimes we're not correctly thinking about how things should be taking place in relationships. And like I said, we'll get into that a little bit more. But I think this question is going to be good and kind of breaking down the psychology of things and then how we feel and why we're here right now and this position in the Black culture and everywhere. But do you think the teachings of the church has positively or negatively affected the mentality of Christian singles when it comes to the process to marriage? I'm going to read it again so everybody can get an understanding, especially those who's tuned into the broadcast. And thank you so much for being tuned in. Do you think the teachings of the church has positively or negatively affected the mentality of Christian singles when it comes to the process to marriage? Go ahead, jump in there, Gabe.
Pick me. No, but I would love to kick this one off. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, because I think, and it's not to bash the church, it's not to bash the singles in the church at all, but I think that it's a little bit of both. Here's why I say that. So if you look at the way that the church is structured, the church believes in marriage, because marriage is in the Bible. That's a covenant that God has ordained. But when we look at the way that it's being taught, and I'm not going to go off when I say this, I believe that is based on my experiences that it has been taught incorrectly. Why? Because I do believe, and I have seen that we stress it so much in the church, that we fail to stress the importance of vetting, of asking questions, and of getting to know the other person. What do I mean? Okay, let me use this as an example, and I'm not bashing nobody in particular when I say this. Matchmaking. We've all been victims of that. I've been a victim of that. I was a victim of that recently, I think about a year ago, before I met the young lady that I'm with now. But man, I tell you, the matchmaking has gotten to a point where if you don't do things a certain way, if you don't say things, or if you're not with a specific person, then they automatically think that you're wrong, that you're not doing it God's way, blah, blah, blah. When in actuality, it could possibly be that they've tried to match you with somebody that may just not be a good fit for you. And if you don't choose that person, then apparently, it's just all blows up. I say negatively as well, also, because we have to consider the fact that we are telling, and I know we're telling women in the church to wait for God to send you a husband, or like in your case, doctor, I think you said purpose partner, if I've got that correct. But very seldomly, because I've been in church about 25 years of my life. I'm 31 years old. Very seldomly you will see men come together in the church and be equipped and taught on how to be the man that God has called them to be, not just for their personal life, but also if they are going to take on a spouse. And it's really a recipe for disaster. We don't know how to keep people out of our business. A lot of folks don't know how to move in silence. And really, when you let too many folks in your house, it's not too long before somebody else is going to try to take over. But I believe it's both positive and negative. I will say this in closing, like the old preachers would say, just let God be God. The word says, let God be true and every man be a liar. And so, if God is not leading you to it, then you need to find yourself walking away from it. If you see somebody trying to manipulate and control you, into making a decision that they want you to make. And then they shame you when you don't make that decision. That is witchcraft and manipulation, and you need to walk in the opposite direction.
Oh man, Gabe, man, you said a mouthful, man, and so I definitely agree with a lot of your points. I know, I think Dr. Elena, she wanted to jump in about the last question, and go ahead, Elena. I'll give you that opportunity. I just saw your comment. You good? Good. Okay. Well, anybody else, go ahead and jump in there. Concerning that question, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Were you gonna go? Okay. Okay. I'll be quick. First of all, I think each of us can find 10, 10 points to mention each. So I had to kind of isolate just two that I saw, and then particularly in the churches that I went to. So first of all, I think that I think Gabe, yeah, just like you were saying, I don't think that there's enough practical teaching for the men. And of course, I'm only speaking from the women's perspective. And so from the church that I was in, if a man comes in every Sunday and he moves chairs around, every leader in the church is like, that is a good man of God. Like, they don't know if he's beaten you. They don't know if he hasn't had a job in the last 10 years, but it's like just showing up to church as a man, just because there's so many women there. It's like you get so much, congratulations. So then what you end up getting is a lot of the not so successful in the world guys who go to church, and they overdo it because that's where they're getting affirmed. But the sisters in the church, we all get master's degrees, we got our own places, we got cars or whatever, and we're like, really, you expect me? Like, when we walk out this church door, our relationship is not spiritual. Like, we have to pay mortgage. You know what I'm saying? Like, his moving chairs is not gonna cut it. And then also even our interest. Like, if I just traveled, you never left the country, you don't have a stamp on your passport, we're not exactly equally yoked in the natural as much. It's going to be a lot more for us to become compatible. And I'm not to say that that can't work, but I'm just saying that they don't take that into account. And then the second thing I'll say is that a lot of pastors are boomers, and they speak about courtship from the standpoint of when they were courting. And I don't think there could be a bigger difference between any two generations than the boomer and the Gen X/millennial, because that's when we introduced the internet. And so that has changed everything from not only the way we meet each other, the way we find out about each other, but then also visually what we're seeing, how that changes your appetite for sexuality, how that changes what you see and how women dress and what you expect from them, what you expect from a relationship, both men and women. And so they don't take that into account. And so some of their advice is like really outdated and not practical. Like, they might be like they tell us women to be safe, make sure you find somebody in this church. There's 55,000 women and 5 men. So how's this going to work? You know what I'm saying? But then they're like, everything else is the devil. Everything else. Online dating, finding them there, it's all the devil. You got to find them in this church so that I can lead you and guide you and make sure you know who to. And so the whole thing is just a mismatch. And I'm not saying they don't mean well, but I think that, we have to take into account all these things and make our advice both theologically correct, but then also relevant.
Yes.
I tell you what, they got one time, because I was telling you this story, Tamel, and I told you what happened to me. I'm gonna say this one thing: we have to remember that at the end of the day, we're living in especially as men, it's like we're living in a time where there is a mass exodus of men from churches. And I will say that I do believe that that's a big reason why a lot of sisters are waiting, well into their, late 20s to 30s. Because back in, 20, 30 years ago, women were getting married, God, like 25, 26 years old. Now it's like, 30s, 40s, 50s, if at all. And then, the sad thing is that when there's men come into the church, they automatically try to match them up, but they don't necessarily get to know the man. It's like you were saying, you don't know if this man is a narcissist, or if you don't know this man is an abuser or a drunk. You don't know what he's doing behind closed doors. And so I think instead of playing the match game, it's important for us to remember that in waiting, we got to know what it is that we want. Like you said, Jared, we got to know our why, because your why is your conviction when the false things try to come into your face.
Here's my thing. I'm gonna say this, and some of y'all gonna be mad, but ain't nothing wrong with the church. Ain't nothing wrong with God's word. It's us. We're the ones that's not following God's word. You know what I'm saying? God's word does not come back void. It's when we start seasoning that thing when we want to. You know what I mean? Here's my thing. Men and women are not having the conversations that they need to have about relationships. I'm going to defend the church. I've been to quite a few singles retreats, singles ministries, and I hear the same thing that I heard back then, the same thing that I hear back now. I can't find nobody who's equally yoked. And then we start getting into that conversation. My thing is this: do you even like the person before you start yoking up with them? Let's start there first. You know what I mean? People want to put a profession before even caring about somebody. We got to get back to caring. That's something that we don't do anymore. I'm gonna let y'all preview it into a private conversation that I had with a good friend of mine today. And I was explaining to her, I was like, look, music and love are not the same anymore. You know what I mean? I'll give you an example. Back in the day, music felt different. Love felt different. You know what I mean? Back in the day, music was analog. I'll give you an example. Music was one of those things that you shared with your environment, your community. You put on the big radio on Saturday, you're cleaning up the house, you're listening to a little bit of gospel music, or if you you listen to Earth, Wind, and Fire, you know what I mean? You listen to a little Luther while you're cleaning up, you know what I mean? And that music permeated through the house. Not only did you hear the music, you felt the music, because everybody had those big old speakers, and it was something that everybody shared. You see what I'm saying? That was analog music. Well, today's world is more like music and love is pretty much like digital music. You know what I mean? Digital music is fast, it's quick. You can download it, you can take it, you can share it with anybody else. You know what I mean? But here's the thing about music. It sounds like love. You know what I mean? That digital music sounds like real music. It sounds like love music, but guess what? It doesn't, you don't feel it. You know what I mean? Back then, everybody shared music with big old boom boxes, and everybody heard it. And you went to a concert and you felt the music. That was an element that you felt of music. You heard it and you felt it. Well, today's love, I don't feel it. I'm just going to be honest with y'all. It's not the same, because we don't treat each other the same way anymore. You know what I mean? If you now you go around and you got people's, little, they share music, they keep it and they quiet and they keep it to themselves. They got the little earbuds. I'm gonna walk around with my little earbuds, my AirPods. I'm gonna listen to my music, and I'm not gonna share with the world. Let me tell y'all something. Love was not meant to keep to yourself. Love was meant to be spread, and it was meant to be shared. And I think that's probably what's wrong with the world these days. We don't treat our love like our music. We don't spread it out. We don't enjoy giving love more than we take it. You know what I mean? We want to hoard it away. That's not what love is for. Love is meant to be given. Love is meant to be shared. You see what I'm saying? And my thing is this: it's not the church's fault that we're doing it. Sometimes we have to step up as people and say, hey, look, I noticed that things aren't going well in your singles ministry. Let's sit down and talk about what people are expecting. Because sometimes we lose things in translation with our expectations. You see what I'm saying? What is it and why are you expecting this thing to happen? You see what I'm saying? So my whole thing is this, and I'm going to wrap this up. Make sure that your love and your music is making sure that it's warm and you give it out, and don't hoard it to yourself. And what happens is it'll allow you to open up and know who that person is, instead of saying, hey, I want you to, because you're an XYZ, because you fill a role. Because here's the thing, your role can be taken away at any point in time. You know what I mean? You can be rendered sick. You can be rendered useless, all of that stuff. But that is also the portion of the vows for sick and well. For deaf do you part. You know what I mean? Rich or poor. You can't sign up only for the good parts of life. That's not how life works. Life also has downs and ups. You see what I'm saying? And that's the reason why we're together. You don't get married for somebody just for the good times. You get married to somebody to weather these storms in life. You know what I mean? As the song goes, or the stones keep on raging in my life. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? My soul is anchored. You need somebody to get anchored to. You know what I mean? First, you need to be anchored to God. Then you need to be anchored to your spouse, because when the kids leave the house, it's just going to be you and them. And I would hate for you to miss your life and to miss your family, pushing off your family until you get old and gray. If I tell anybody if they're young, make sure you start your family early, because a blessing is for you to see your great grandchildren and to pass down those things that you were passed down to. That is a blessing to be surrounded by your family in your last days. So my thing is, I'm gonna leave y'all with this. Make sure that your love is warm and inviting, and make sure that you love somebody on a regular basis and tie into God. He'll clue into you, and get with a good Bible believing church, and make sure you work that out, and make sure you serve in the church. Just don't go to church and look to see what you can take from it. Go to church and look to see what you can give it. And that's my last word.
Hey, Dr. Lena, did you want to jump in there before I say something?
Yes. Yes, I'll jump in real quick, but oh wow, that was a lot. I mean, JB was talking about giving, not just taking in the church, and I was like, wow, that was like a huge wow, because that was actually something that I was gonna. Teachings of the church has positively or negatively affected the mentality of Christian singles. And so when it comes to process of marriage. So for me personally, I would say both. But I do agree with JB in the sense that I feel like we as people do need to take. I think sometimes it's more of a geographical situation. For me personally, I lived in Alabama for about 5 years, and I was active in the church that I love in Alabama while I was living in Auburn, Alabama. But at that same church, the ministry would sometimes say that once you get married, have kids, like to the women, women, once you get married, you need to go ahead and have kids. You need to make sure you're cooking. You need to, so all these things are, like, I would say, ingrained into what a woman should be doing. And I'm just going to say, like, certain gender role things, I feel like that's more for a woman and a man that's in the relationship to decide. It should not, my own opinion, certain things, like just telling a woman just because she's a woman to go, once you get married, to have kids. I'm saying that because, for instance, with me, I was active in that church, and I've been fortunate enough to actually be active and be in a few ministries, even while being single. That is something that sometimes I know some people that if they're single, they cannot participate in certain ministries. And I've been a part of young adult ministry. Even at my church in Texas, I was a part of the Sunday school ministry. I was a high school Sunday school teacher, and I was a part of young adult ministry. In my church in Alabama, I was a part of the youth ministry. But sometimes singles cannot be in certain ministries because they're single. And so, and neither here nor there, I'm not judging that. I'm just making the point that I've been fortunate enough that even though I've been single, that I've still been able to participate in certain ministries. But the negative impact that I want to tap on is that expecting women to automatically have kids and get in the kitchen. Now, I'm going to be very transparent because I don't want kids by choice. I have a total of 25 nieces and nephews. My oldest niece is 31. I don't have a problem with saying my age. I'm 42. So I've been an aunt since I was 11. And so at one of the church, I'm not going to say the name of the church I was attending, somebody may be on here and know which church, but in Alabama, the ministry would say as soon as we got married, we need to have babies. And I'm like, I didn't agree with that. I did not, because I didn't feel that automatically I needed to start having kids just because I'm married. That just didn't sit with me. And so someone down in the comments mentioned a little bit ago that the church is being used as a scapegoat. I don't know who it was. I read a comment down here.
That was Greg.
Accountability. And I believe that, I think it was something Gabe was saying about take it all in and chew out. Not everything is meant for everyone. I can still have purpose and work and empower others. And so, because there are some women and some men that won't have kids, and so there is still purpose behind my life. And so it does not have to automatically be purpose that starts because I have kids or because I'm married. And so in the positive aspects is that there are some church that I know, some church locations that are helping, like, encourage singles and have these single ministries. They have meetups, they have different things going on. So I wouldn't say it was automatically a negative. I would say a bit of both, but I do agree that we as people need to take more accountability for what we are doing, So that was what I had to add.
Absolutely great point that you made. I think everybody is really breaking this question down and letting people know how they feel in their perspectives. Go ahead, Rochelle. I know you wanted to add something there.
Yeah, I just wanted to add really quickly because I heard a lot what was said, and I heard a lot of the comments. And I think balance is important because I know, rightfully so, a lot of people want to defend the church. And I just endorsed the book called Church Hurt, and it talked about both parties. But I just want to make it clear, like, the church is not an inanimate object. It is an institution that's full of broken people. So they are going to do things that are not right or not relevant, and sometimes downright shady. And a lot of women who talk about this, and I'm just talking from the Black women perspective, are there 34 hours a day and pouring into these churches. And so I think if anybody has the right to say, hey, we're not being served in a way that we feel that we need, I think it would be them. And a lot of times they're not heard. We have a lot of pastors who have egos or who say, that sounds like a good idea, but I'm going to continue doing what I know. And they just continue on. Like, I'm from New York City. I live in Atlanta now, but I'm from New York City. There was no shyness about telling leadership what we need, etc. And then also, even if we didn't get what we needed from the church, we did go on and go about it in a different way, a godly way. So even if we had that complaint, it's not like we stopped there. So I just wanted to make it clear that, yes, people have to take accountability, but then also leadership does too. They're not perfect. These are broken human beings. All of us are broken. And so, so I think collectively we can all look at what we can do better.
Wow. I think that was really good. Another great point. And so the points that I really want to make concerning this is, of course, now I am married. Thank God I'm out of the ghetto dating scene. I am married now. Been married for about 2 months now, and it's been wonderful. It's been great. But I think preparation is definitely the key, right? Preparation is the key. I think in the midst of our singleness, there are certain things that we should be doing, and the Bible gives us a map. It's a map on how men, if men would really take a look at Adam before God presented Eve to Adam, Adam was working. And that's one thing I think is necessary, is that men be working on themselves. I think that men should be in the process of building, and being self-sufficient financially and also in their character as well. So we should be walking in the purpose of God in our singleness, right? Why am I single? Am I doing something wrong? No, I don't think you're necessarily doing something wrong. But also in our singleness, there are things that we should be doing when we're not married. And I think the focus of the church is so much on, once you get saved and accept Christ as your personal savior, the next step is marriage. But some people aren't ready for marriage. Some people haven't been prepared for marriage. And so you have to prepare your heart and mind. That was one of my prayers, that the Lord would prepare my heart and mind for a wife, make sure that I was ready financially, emotionally, and I was ready socially to make those sacrifices, to be committed to one woman, that I had the right mentality as far as that I was going to have the mentality to want to take care of her. But also another example is Paul. Paul, he was working, and his purpose, he said that he thought that all men, right, should be like him and be single, because he was committed unto the Lord. He said everybody should submit themselves and be like him and submit themselves unto the Lord. But that is what we should be doing, right, as Christians. Not so much wanting to hurry up and get married and get into that institution quickly, but we should be working on our purpose, working on ourselves. What about our character development, right? What is our mental and our moral qualities that we have that we can bring to someone else in a relationship? Because when it comes to relationships, you can't be selfish. It's not all about you anymore, but it's about pleasing that other person. It's about outdoing each other in ways. And how can I, as a man, or how can I, as a woman, make this person happy, right? And make sure that her needs are fulfilled. And that's what we have to have, right? To be able to put our needs before somebody else. And so these are all part of character development, right? Our character has to be developed in a way to where, we are prepared to go into that institution, because it's very serious. And one other thing that I like to say, and I know Dr. Alina wants to jump in here, is that this is the issue to me as well, right? I think that the church has mentally given men and women false expectations, or a false promise of, if you have accepted Christ into your life, and if you are abstinent and honoring God with your body, you are guaranteed to get a spouse. But our character is going to determine if we, walk into that institution of marriage, or we are blessed with a spouse. Our character, our attitude. Do you have a good attitude? Is your attitude poor? Do you have a good demeanor? All of those things are important. How do you treat people? How do you talk to people? Do you feel like you're unselfish enough to share everything? And that's even before marriage, but in singleness and getting to know somebody. And so I'll leave it there. I'll stop there. But I think men should look at those examples. And I know the church focuses on what women should do all the time, which I think is great. What women need to do in order to be married. But we men have to prepare ourselves. I think Rochelle was saying earlier in the conversation about, women have degrees and they're educated. We need to be doing those same things as men, right? We need to be educated, making sure that we have our savings and we have enough money to make sure that we have something to fall back on if things do get tough in the marriage. So it's all about character development, integrity. We have to work on ourselves and examine ourselves and make sure that we are, whatever we're looking for, that we are that and more. If we're looking for somebody, if we're looking for certain things in a mate, we should be able to provide those things as well. And so that's how I feel. But go ahead, Dr. Alina, and jump in there, and then we'll keep going on.
Okay, now I have a few extra things to mention, since Elder Tamel, you done brought up something that I want to unpack. You brought up the importance of men and women should be getting to know each other. If you're single and you're dating someone with the end goal being marriage, you need to get to know the person beyond what's their favorite color. Can you cook? What type of meals do you like? You need to get to know the person. I believe that singles dating and with the end goal of marriage should travel, even if it's just local or somewhere, road trips, even if it's just a road trip, because you learn important things by just sitting in the car with someone for 2-3 hours. So it doesn't have to be catching a flight. Some type of travel needs to occur. You learn things by getting out of your comfort zone. I've dated men that they quickly want me to come to where they are. Now I travel and I date. It doesn't really matter if they're in whatever state they're in, but most of my travel is solo travel, not going to meetups with somebody. It's me traveling and I'm doing exact solo traveling around the US and a few other countries. So I talked to a few men when we've talked about if we're going to meet in their long distance, because I do date long distance sometimes. I prefer town, meaning I'm getting to know the area. They are getting to know the area. I'm not just coming where they are around. I don't need them to show me around because I I travel pretty often, so I think I'll be fine. And I don't want to feel like I have to show them around, in the sense that I'm coming to their area, they're coming to where I'm at. The best suggestion, if you're dating long distance, find a neutral area to meet him or meet her. And then both of you are navigating that same area. You learn things that you're not going to learn if they're just in their hometown. You learn things about them or her, him or her. And so I want to unpack that for a minute because Elder Tamel mentioned that. And I was like, wow, I definitely need to mention that real quick, that we need to go beyond surface level. Hello, how you doing? Good morning, good night. How was your day? We need to go beyond these little quick text messages and this, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite color? We need to get on the phone and talk, video chat, see each other. There is a lot to unpack to get to know a person beyond this little surface level stuff. And you're getting married to someone that you don't really know. You just know they like to cook and they know how to cook. That's all. I mean, that's what some men, that's one of their first questions. Do you know how to cook? And I'm like, right. I know how to cook, but I'm not going to be cooking all the time because I'm busy. But I'm just saying, we need to go beyond that, and be honest. Be honest and transparent. If you know how to cook, but you're not going to be able to cook that often, please tell somebody. Don't be acting like you're going to be in the kitchen and like I just mentioned for me. I have no problem with cooking, but I have a lot going on that now, of course, I would prefer to cook with my purpose partner, but I have a lot going on. So there's no reason for me to make it up, sugarcoat it just to get a ring and to get married. You are wasting your time. You are wasting his time and your time, her time, basically. If you just sugarcoating things, be transparent. Please, you wasting time. Okay, last point. About the balance. Rochelle mentioned about balance. I think it's very important to have social time, get to know others in church, be active within a ministry. Why are you waiting until you get married to find a ministry that you can participate and volunteer in? You need to be active now as a single. Why are you waiting? And so I think the balance is important, but even when you're active, participating in a ministry, you still need to make sure your heart, your mind is together, and you take some time away if needed. For me, after I dealt with some grief, grief is still a process. No one asked me to, I stepped out of a few ministries at church because I needed to. My heart was not where it needed to be, and I could not successfully pour into the youth, the high school students anymore with all this overload of grief on me. I stepped out so I could get a licensed professional counselor. Yes, licensed. You can be in the church and still get counseling. These are important things that we need to take accountability for. You can be in the church, a Christian, and still have a licensed professional counselor. So balance is important. If your mind and your heart is not right, you need to, get yourself right. Don't just stay in ministries just for the titles. I stepped out of 2 ministries in my current church because I needed to get myself right. I needed to get myself right. I could no longer pour into others, encourage others if I wasn't being encouraged the way I needed to be. That's it. That's all I have.
Great points. Some more great points. I think everybody made some awesome points, and I think that as you're looking at the comments, that you're seeing, everybody's reactions, and everybody has comments, and I think those are some good, comments and reactions there when we look into the comments as well. Go ahead, JB.
May I speak, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Here's my thing. We as a people have a bad habit of not addressing our issues and our trauma. Let me tell you what we do. We like to take our accomplishments and slap Band-Aids over our trauma instead of addressing it. Okay. My thing is this: you can't run from your problems. You cannot. That's like putting on clean clothes and you haven't taken a bath. It's still gonna stink. You know what I mean? My thing is this: you got to make sure that you fix yourself and know why you're doing what you're doing. If you had some type of trauma or whatever, go ahead and fix that. Because when you get into a relationship and you're running around in circles, doing all this other stuff, and you're appearing to be busy and you're appearing to be productive, all you're doing is you're moving. There's no progress. I tell people all the time, make sure if you're busy, it has a purpose. You know what I mean? Sometimes if you ever been in a relationship with somebody, they really don't want to be in the house with you, what they'll do is they look for stuff to do. Well, I got to go and I got to watch these baseboards. Well, I got to go in here. I got to do this. I got to do that. House will be spick and span. They'll still find stuff to do. Or say, for instance, if you got into it with your spouse or whatever, you mess around and you take the long way home because you don't want to hear that. You know what I mean? That type of thing. My thing is this: we don't address issues that need to be addressed. Do not cover it with false activity, thinking that you're going to fool somebody. There's a reason why the fruit of the Spirit, when the Holy Spirit is talking to you, that exists. You know what I mean? A lot of times women like to brag about women's intuition. Well, guess what? A guy that's plugged into God has intuition from on high. He's going to know when something's out of place. He's going to know when something's not right. He's going to say, hey, babe, listen, have a seat. Let's talk for a minute. I notice you haven't been yourself lately. Tell me what's on your mind. That is the part of wisdom as men we need to learn. We need to sit up and we need to figure out exactly how our women work. You know what I mean? And figure that out. Men, I'm telling you, Tamel and Gabe, we all sit around and we ask ourselves, how can we be better husbands? You see what I'm saying? That type of thing. We do it all the time. And sometimes we run across situations where it may be a situation that might not be ideal, but as the leader of the household, it is your responsibility to lead your wife with wisdom. And with that, you're going to have to know how to see past all that activity, because people will get busy moving around. You know what I mean? But they never, ever address the issue that needs to be addressed. Listen, God does not give us the spirit of fear. You know what I mean? He does not.
Say that last part, JB.
God does not give us the spirit of fear.
Love, the power of a sound mind.
That's right, a sound mind.
There you go.
Here's my whole thing about that too. Also, a lot of women, I'm going to say this, a lot of women look for men to be their providers. God is your provider. God is your Jehovah Jireh. God supplies all your needs. You see what I'm saying? My thing is this: if you're tied into that person you're supposed to be tied in, and you're both tied into God, he is going to give you manna. He's going to make provision. He's going to put you guys' head together so you can talk, so you don't have to go. What's that saying? I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor my seed begging for bread. That's for real, y'all. That's for real. My whole thing is this: please don't get in the habit of covering your trauma with activity, no matter what it is. I'm talking about, going to school. I'm talking about travel. I'm talking about cooking. I'm talking about whatever it is you want to do. You can still prosper, but you still have to address your issues. Take your issues to God. Get therapy. If you have a spouse, explain to them what's going on. Don't leave them in the dark. They're a part of you now. You can't do that. They need to know what's going on. And I'm pretty sure you would want to know what's going on with them as well. Check in with each other from time to time. You know what I mean? Make a habit of saying, hey, how are you doing today? You know what I mean? I had to get on a few friends of mine the other day. I'm like, look, before you bring me all your problems, say hello, how you doing? You know what I mean? It's common courtesy. Sometimes we are not taught those small things, but
That's
those
true.
small things can't be taught unless you sit down and you talk to people. You know what I mean? I am not, your emotional garbage bag. I'm your friend. You know what I mean? Ask me how I'm doing before you give me all your problems. You see what I'm saying? I don't mind listening to your problems. Matter of fact, I got some solutions. You know what I mean? Let's get you fixed because you matter to me. You know what I mean? But we shouldn't do that. We should always make sure that we listen to each other. Have empathy. That's something that seems to be lacking today. We don't empathize with each other. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, long time ago, before she got married, we sat down at Papado's for I think it was like 2 or 3 shifts. And then people came in and we sat down, we had a conversation. And they were talking about how the dating pool was trash and this, that, and the other. And she's telling me, well, I'm dating this doctor, or I'm dating this engineer, this, that, and the other. And we started talking about love languages. And I was like, you're dating people who are not going to have time with you. That's the reason why that is not working. And then, after about, that's just to get the gist of it. We sat down, we talked about it. But a year later, she married somebody completely different. And now she's been married for the last 10 years, got a beautiful daughter. Every time I look up, they're celebrating an anniversary. Matter of fact, they just celebrated an anniversary. All because I took the time out. We all took the time out to have fellowship and talk to one another and determine what was actually needed, what we actually needed. And what she needed was somebody who was there. You know what I mean? She needed words of affirmation. She needed physical touch. She needed somebody to be there. And until we address what we actually need by sitting down, fellowshipping, and having honest dialogue, it's not going to happen. A lot of us just going to walk the roam the earth, going to and fro, and not knowing why we're even here. We're here to love. That's the main reason. God is love, and we're part of his family. So we should make sure that we focus on the main thing and make the main thing the main thing, instead of just trying to find a label and slapping on somebody and say, that's my boo. You know what I mean? That's all I got to say about that. Thank you, Tamel, for allowing me the opportunity to speak on that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Great points, great points. And we've come to the mid mark in the discussion. And so I wanted to jump to the next question, but I think everybody did a wonderful job of kind of covering that question. I know that was going to be a deep one. So I wanted to get to these questions for the sake of time. I know we got about 20 minutes remaining. This conversation is really good. You guys are doing a wonderful job. If you look in the comments, I mean, it's on fire in the comments. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm looking at everybody's perspective. So I'm doing a couple of different things, at the same time. But I think Rochelle was talking about this earlier when we was talking about why am I single? Am I doing something wrong? I think that she made a great point. The question is, do you believe that the decision to be abstinent has affected the ability of Christian singles to get into committed relationships? Once again, I ask it one more time. Do you believe that the decision to be abstinent has affected the ability of Christian singles to get into committed relationships? Anybody can jump in there.
So I will say it like this. If I can kind of tweak that question just a little bit, Tamil,
Go ahead.
like I would say, does it affect true Christians? The answer is no. But does it affect people that go to a fellowship? Yes, because again, ain't nobody perfect. Now, I will say this: going into a Christian fellowship, where you already see a couple of disadvantages. Number one, there is a huge, massive amount of women and not a lot of men. And so when we look at abstinence, of course, we want to honor God with our bodies. The Bible says that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost. It also tells you to flee fornication. And it says every man that commits fornication sins against his own body. And so I believe that it does affect, because not a lot of people are willing to wait anymore. And I say that because we're living in an instant gratification society where we want to do what pleases our flesh more than we do what pleases God. You have to also keep in mind that we're living in a time where people are calling good evil and evil good. And I hate to say this because I'm not a woman, ain't never been a woman a day in my life. But, we're living in a time where women that want to wait, that want to do right, that want to be wives, that want to do things the right way, they're being seen as pick-me's. They're being seen as all of these other shameful names because of the fact that they want to do things God's way. Well, I say this, the Bible tells us that, when we want to do things God's way, that straight and narrow is the way to life. Ain't everybody is not going to be on that road with us. And so when it comes to dating, we have to consider that, it already lessens the pool of available potential candidates that we thought that we had. But, while the pickings were slim, now they've even become slimmer. But when we look at it, if we change our perspective, I do believe that we'll find that, the decision to wait and the decision to be abstinent until marriage actually weeds out those, again, like we were saying earlier, who have ulterior motives. Because ulterior motives, they're going to come out whether whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you're in a relationship with somebody. And I do believe that we must know that wedding rings do not cure lust. Signing a government paper to legally bind yourself to somebody and be responsible for them isn't going to cure the fact that you have a wandering eye, whether you're a man or whether you're a woman. And so those things, in order to combat those things, they need to be, first of all, you need to be delivered. Second of all, you need to repent. And then thirdly, you need to keep those desires covered under the blood of Jesus Christ. So yes, it has affected dating, both positive and negative, but I really believe it's just depending on how you look at it.
I'm going to say this, just to take the Bible off of it. It's clean, man. You know what I'm saying? It's cleaner not to get out here and get involved in these streets. Let me tell you something. I told Tamil a long time ago, my greatest fear is for me to F around and find out and get caught up and get a disease and meet the love of my life and can't be with her because I was not, dutiful with my body. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times women like to think that men don't keep to themselves. Yes, we do. You know what I mean? We don't give access to us. It's too important. If your legacy is that important, no, we're not going to lay down with anybody. You know what I mean? It's think about it, man. You got people who would just up and divorce you if you don't get to know them. That take your kids if you don't get to know them. Finding a wife, it should be one of those things that takes time. You know what I mean? Especially if it's important. And if you're out here, being willy-nilly, you know what I mean, with your sexual appetite, how is that going to carry over to marriage? A hard habit is hard to break. You know what I mean? So it's just better that you just keep it clean, man. You know what I mean? Don't be out there, getting stuff mixed up and then you wasting your energy and your time. What's that? Proverbs 31:3 says, don't waste your time on these loose women. Is that what it says? I think that's what it says. And as men, we should not do that. It's a waste of your time and your strength. You know what I mean? It breaks down the strength of kings. Remember, you're a king. You're running your own household and your castle. Take care of yourself. You know what I mean? Not only protect yourself, protect your wife, your future wife. Don't go out there and get, don't do that. It's not worth it, man. It's not worth it. That's my thing. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, I definitely want to step into this because out the gate, I answered the question and answered with abstinence at the top. But I hate that that the first thing I had to say kind of framed it in somewhat of a negative answer to the question, like, why are you still single or whatever? But I wanted to make it clear first and foremost that there are a lot of beautiful brothers that are abstinent that I have met and still communicate with. And there are brothers who are not abstinent that choose to continue to have a friendship with me because they respect me. And I have an actual personality and I have interests. And so they know that that's off the table, but they still feel like I'm a valuable person to have in their life. And then, like JB said, when I took a COVID test, I was like, do women go through this every month when they're trying to figure out if they're pregnant by some loser like at the bar that they just met. Like I was so nervous when my COVID results were coming up, and there's so many women that go through that with pregnancy tests. I'm like, that's not my ministry. So I don't want it to seem like this is like a sad thing. Like I love my life and I love what God has for me when God has for me. So that's one thing I just wanted to put out there. But then also, as we talk about like therapy, we have to understand that some people, instead of dealing with the issues in a relationship, they're like, let's just have sex. And so in your relationship, instead of dealing with these things, sometimes that's what you use. And then by the time the sex wears out, you have kids, and then you're dealing with that phase and that excitement. And then when that wears out, something else happens. And then like 10, 12 years down the line, you realize you really had nothing of substance to begin with. You just had a whole bunch of distractions. And so I think that the healthy way to do it, I mean, we all know, be faithful to God. You don't get to choose what God says and what you will follow. But also in the natural, it's actually better for you. And especially if you don't even know if this person is emotionally healthy, which became my number one, my number one requirement for a man. I don't care about race, height, what you do for work. After living for God, are you emotionally healthy? Because I know I did my therapy, you know what I mean? And I do maintenance. So what are you doing? And we're not going to muddy that up with having sex. So I think it has changed for some people, and it should change it. And then sometimes I think it has changed for the worse for people who are not practicing it. But I'm not one to judge, but I'm just going to go with what the Lord says. Like, you know, as for me and my house, that's what we do.
Go ahead. Did you want to jump in there, Dr. Lena? I think you're on mute. Okay. Well, I think that Rochelle and everybody else, I think they made really great points. And I think it's great that we're having this conversation, because I think it's something that has not been talked about, I think, enough. And so my recommendation is, especially because, so let's keep it real for a moment. To brothers, you know, brothers are physical creatures. And brother, hey, ladies, you look good. You guys are fine. And we listen, y'all look good. And so of course there's always going to be a desire. If you're a man and you're attracted to someone, you know, that's something that is not maybe your main focus, but there's something in the back of your mind that, yeah, she is fine. And eventually you want to make love to her. But I think, as the Bible states, and that's all I can go by, as that's the only truth that I'll put out there, is, of course, when Jesus made those commands for us to flee fornication, there are some results that come from fornication, not always good results, especially not in the context of marriage. So there was a reason why Jesus didn't want us to have sex before marriage, that, you know, different situations, you know, having sex with someone and you're not married to them can lead to, you know, single parent homes. I know some of you guys talked about diseases, a person not being mentally healthy. And so anytime in the past that I decided that I wanted to have sex, I'm just being real and transparent. It wasn't something that was forced. It was a decision that both me and that woman wanted to do. Okay, so we both made that decision to have sex. Like I said, I'm not saying that it's not right according to the word of God, and definitely fornication is wrong. But I want to say this, and then I want to give a quick testimony, and then we'll move on. But I think it's important to have these conversations up front, because if you have this sexual conversation up front, I think it will eliminate, you know, those that are in the relationship or trying to get to know you for the wrong reasons. And so once you take sex off of the table, then it does give you an opportunity and a chance to really get to know the intricacies of that person's personality, what they're really about. I'll use this testimony. When I met my wife, we were just talking, we were just dating, and we had a very, very deep conversation. And I'm saying it was really in depth. I mean, we got down to the nitty gritty because we didn't want to waste each other's time. And it was very purposeful, and we were intentional in what we wanted to do and how we wanted to date and what we desired and what we wanted. So we were very intentional. I think it's so important to be honest from the beginning about what you want and what you desire in a mate. I think it's so key that you get those hard conversations out of the way ahead of time. Talk about the sex, talk about the money. And so we had that conversation. And so and most of my relationships, and I'm married now, I thank God that I'm married. It's wonderful. It's been amazing these 2 months. But in the past, like I said, you know, I was not waiting for sex into a marriage, because if we wanted to do it, look, you know, we're horny, we like each other. Hey, we're gonna do it. It's not the right thing to do. I'm just being honest with you, because it goes against the word of God. But I understand the battle. I understand the struggle. But you know, sometimes, you know, and this is, the Lord really had to deal with my heart and my mind, because I was meeting women, just being honest with you, that were abstinent, meaning a lot of women back to back abstinent. I'm not having sex. I'm like, man, I ain't waiting to, man, shoot. I ain't waiting to, you know, have sex before married, because that's what I was used to. And, you know, I'm a highly sexual person. So that's a whole nother story. We talk about that another day. But all I'm saying is that the struggle is real, right? But God does give you strength, and it takes a discipline. Men have to be disciplined in their flesh, because even if you're married and the woman is great and you're having great sex, if you're not disciplined in your flesh, you would go out there and cheat anyway. And so we do have to be disciplined in our flesh. And I think it comes to making a decision. If you have a good woman, if you have a good man, if you have somebody that's special, that you feel like you can make a long-lasting, happy life in marriage with, I think it would be beneficial to wait, because I was one that was open to sex before marriage, but my wife was abstinent, and she was strong in that stance on abstinence, and I didn't want to miss out on a good woman. I knew she was a good woman, but the Lord had to deal with my heart and mind and say, well, you need to discipline your flesh if you want to be with her. You need to discipline your flesh. Can you wait? And I had to take that challenge and really go to the Lord and say, you know what? You know, I'm not going to let another good woman slip away or pass because she's not going to have sex with me before marriage, because she's a wonderful woman. I'm just being honest with you. I'm trying to help somebody out here, right? I had to be,
Tell it.
you know,
That's wonderful.
Tell the truth, bro.
Yeah. And so this is real talk, right? And so that's what has to take place. And this is what I will say, though. Listen, we got to, as Christian men and women, we got to speed these engagements up. Listen to me. This is the key, because you're going to fall into sexual sin if you around a person, she looking good, she wearing them sundresses, and you know, he might have, you see him with the shirt off, he's built muscular like myself.
Reverend.
Hey, listen. You are going to have some desire for that individual. So if you put yourself in different situations, then sexual sin can take place. So what I'm saying is, in all seriousness now, and I was just kidding about the Biden and stuff like that, but I'm just saying that it's important to be intentional. Like I said, me and my wife, we decided to get married after 9 months of knowing each other. And so it was hot. Some days it was tough. It was hard. I'm telling you, it was tough, you know, to maintain, you know, our integrity, to maintain our pureness as far as not having sex before marriage. But it can be done. And I would recommend that if you are with someone and you know that they're a good person, and you know their character, you know their integrity, you know their demeanor, don't wait 2 and 3 years to get married. Make the decision, be intentional, and get married to that individual. And so that's all I would say. Faster engagements. Sisters, help the brothers out. They want you. You look good. You're fine. And you having them wait a year and a half and 2 and 3 years, and they can't hold on. And so they end it before they begin it. This is just real. This is coming from perspective, the elder in the Church of God in Christ. I have to be real. I have to be transparent with you. But that's what I wanted to say. I want to give that quick testimony, but that's real, right? And so we do have to be more disciplined in our flesh. And if I can do it for 9 months, brothers, You can do it. You can do it. All right. So my mentality had to change. And so I think it's men and women, we have to have a mentality switch, right? If we really want to do it God's way, if we want to be blessed, regardless of what other people have done. Because you got some pastors and they had sex and stuff before the wives. We hold them in high esteem, but I know pastors that had sex before the wives, before they were married, and they're still together to this day, and they're still blessed. And so, abstinence doesn't guarantee that you're going to have a spouse, and having sex doesn't guarantee that you're going to get a spouse as well. And so, you just have to be led by the Lord Jesus and make sure that you pray and seek God to find out, if this person is right. Pray about it. And, it doesn't take 2 and 3 years to find out if that person is right for you. I would say within 6 months to a year. That's my time frame. Everybody's different, but I just wanted to give that to you, give you some realness. All right. And so we got a few minutes. I know we're going a little bit above the time, but I wanted to give you guys a chance because we can go on and on. This has been a wonderful discussion, and I asked these questions to you all, and then we'll finish up. We'll end it. I want to all give you guys a chance to tell everybody how to get a hold of you, how to hook up with you, and how they can connect with you. But I want to present this last question. We're going to present these questions 2 in a row, and I want you guys to be candid, and then we'll end the discussion. But in present day times, this is the last 2 questions. In present day times, do you believe that men and women desire to be married and view marriage as a benefit or a detriment? Do you believe in these present days and times that men and women desire to be married and view marriage as a benefit or a detriment? Please explain. And then this last question, I want you to also leave the singles with some encouragement as well. If you could provide some perspective and some encouragement so that, we're not just talking about the problems, but we're giving some solutions as well. So if you can, please try to incorporate that in your last remarks and, be very candid, be very real. Like I said, I'm okay with going over the time if you guys are, but I just want to give you guys that opportunity. And thank you, everybody, for being tuned in, for watching and hanging in here with us. I know it's been a long conversation, but it's been a good one. Thank you for hanging in there. But anybody can jump in. Go ahead.
Well, since I've been batting lead off all night tonight, I'm going to just go ahead and just lead off on this last one. I'll say it like this. Me personally, I struggled with the idea of marriage for a long time because of the experiences that I had seen in other people's relationships. And so I always ask this question, though, because I think that while we are definitely hopeful, we also have to be realistic. When you look at the statistics, I believe about 50 to 65% of marriages end in divorce. And out of those, 80% of those are initiated by women. And I think that that's something that we have to consider. A lot of men, and if you don't know that in whatever state you're in, I would advise you go on down to the family court and, watch some of those proceedings. And I'm not being negative when I say this, but the reality is that most marriages that start end. And I'm a believer that all relationships at one point or another, they end. Either it's going to end in, whether you break up, it's going to end in death, or it's going to end in divorce. And so really, when you think about the idea of marriage, it may be beneficial depending on where you are in your life. I know that men want a legacy. A lot of men want offspring. They want kids. But the problem is that with the society that we're living in, a lot of them are afraid to go down that route because of what they've seen. Let me ask you this question. And I want you to think about this. Let's say you were going to go onto a flight. Would you get onto a flight to go to a specific destination knowing that you had a 20% chance of surviving from the time that you took off to the time that you landed? Most of us would probably say no. But when we look at it from the perspective of most men, that's a similar way that they look at modern day marriage. it's because, like you've said all the time, Jared, on other podcasts, people don't want to do the work. People want to just come in. They've got this fairy tale idea about what marriage really is. And I can't really speak too much on marriage. I ain't even married, not yet, at least. But I will say that, they got this fairy tale idea of what marriage is supposed to be. But the reality is that marriage takes work. And people don't want to work. I put it in the comments. We are innately lazy. We want people to hand things to us on a silver platter. And when it doesn't go our way, even with all the agendas that we have in society, we decide that, oh, well, I don't want to do this, or, oh, well, there's irreconcilable differences. Now, I will say this from this perspective of a man. Marriage can be right for a man if he has the right woman. And so you watch what the woman does. You watch, how she treats people. Watch this. Watch what happens when she gets mad. Does she blow up, or does she she get upset, and then y'all can come back together and have a conversation? Listen, if she can get upset and y'all come back and have a conversation, that's a good one. You want to hold on to her. I think that marriage benefits women. It definitely does. Given the fact that, God ordained this. This is, at the end of the day, this is a covenant. No matter what society says, no matter what the statistics look like, it's a covenant that was ordained by God. But I think that we also have to look at the reality of this is what could potentially happen. It's not to say that it will, but that there's a possibility that it may. And if you don't want that to be the end result, then both of you got to work together. I mean, it ain't no 50-50. It's 100% of you and 100% of her. And y'all come together and y'all really do what you got to do in order to make this work and make God pleased with you. Now, I will say, as far as a word of encouragement to those of you that are single out there, it's like, if marriage is forever, in the eyes of God, there's no rush. It's like, if you're in a position where, you're waiting on, God to lead you to somebody, or you're waiting on God, if you're elated for him to send you somebody, then, just continue to do what God has called you to do. Continue to live out the life that he's called you to live. And, I will say this, when you're looking at, being single, I was single for a long time. I mean, I'm just going to be transparent. It's good. It's great. But if I'm completely honest with you, sometimes it sucks. Like, it sucks not having somebody that you can confide in. It sucks not having somebody that you can be transparent with, your, tell about your day, or, tell them how you feel. And when you gotta bottle all that stuff up inside, it gets hard. And as an elder myself, I could say, oh, well, take it to God, I mean, you can take it to God, but if we're also being realistic and practical here, you need somebody to take those things too. And so I want to just really encourage you to really find yourself getting busy. And I'm not going to say like the old sayings, get busy for the Lord. I'm not going to do all that to y'all. But really just get busy. Don't sit around waiting forever. Put yourself in a position where you can run into some quality people, whether it's at church, or whether it's at, some kind of Christian networking event, or whether it's a business networking event. I tell ladies this all the time. You've got a better chance a lot of times meeting a quality man that actually you're compatible with when you go to things that you both share a mutual interest in, besides church, of course. So I just want to encourage y'all. I do believe that God, if it is your desire to be married, that God does and can bless you, and God will. Just continue to be faithful to him. And I believe that the Lord, like the old folks would say, will bless you real good.
Oh my gosh.
It's old school. Gabe is old. It's old soul. Yeah, go ahead. Anybody? Yeah, go ahead and jump in there. Do you want me to read the question again, or you guys are good?
No, I got it. I think. So in terms of people looking at marriage as a detriment or benefit, I mean, there's so many different cultures and so many different views, and it also depends on gender and etc. But I think people need to learn how to, push out the noise and really, especially if you're a Christian, first of all, look at the purpose of marriage. Why did God create marriage? What is this for? And then I think it's important to ask yourself, why are you getting married? Are you looking just to have your needs met? Or are you wanting to serve this other person in a special way that would glorify God? And do you feel like both of y'all will produce more fruit than you would by yourselves? And do you feel like you're emotionally healthy to come home and have peace together? Not just love, sex, lust, which is all fun, but actual peace. And so I think that that's good. And then also too, you should have a view of healthy married people that are role models, because I think so many people see so many broken marriages, and that's because those people are just broken in all kinds of ways. You don't know why these marriages didn't work. You don't know who lied to who. You don't know how they speak to each other. You don't know how their parents taught them toxic ways of communicating, etc. So it's like you don't live with people 24/7. So you're never gonna know, And then my family's Jamaican. Like our culture is way different, and there's a lot of toxicity in the ways that men and women relate in marriage too. So all those things you have to take into account, and you just have to say, you know what, whether it's in my family or my culture or etc., I'm going to be the one to stop that going forward, by doing the work on myself and also looking to God for what he says marriage should be, and if I'm supposed to even be married, because that's important. But while you're waiting, go out and live life. This is an amazing place to be, like you should be searching for fulfillment. And let me tell you, brothers will find you. They will find you at the airport. They will find you at the store. They'll find you at Publix. They will find you online. They will slide in your DMs. You know what I mean? Just be fabulous you, and they will find you in that time. You know what I mean? So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I think everybody is
Okay,
absolutely making
so
some
I
great
have a
points.
few
Go ahead.
things.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna add to what Rochelle was saying about they will find you. Men will find you if you're out. You're not just sitting in the house. Because I'm out, and even at the airport, on the flights, I'm in conversation with people. Actually, it ended up being a good tag. Not just me in conversation with men, but just in general, I'm in conversations with people when I'm at the airports now. And since I'm a travel agent, it's a perfect opportunity for me to pass out my business cards and chat with people about travel and different things. So, yeah. So if you are out, women, then they will find you. So anyway, so let me go to the questions. Do you believe that men and women desire to be married and view marriage as a benefit or a detriment? So I think the answer to that would be, for me, I personally think yes, men and women desire to be married. And I believe that marriage is viewed as a benefit. However, I believe also that some, or the benefit that they are looking at, is not the what they should be focused on, basically. Social media has like over bombarded, I feel like, that some people are like overly thinking about, okay, I need to be married because I see this couple over here with these cute pictures. They traveled over here, they did this, they don't, and I'm like, look, I'm single and I'm living my life, my best life, my one life now. As a single, I take cute pictures. You don't have to wait on the marriage. You don't. I'm just saying. I'm not against getting married again. Let me make that clear. Let me make sure that's clear. I am open to being married again, but in the meantime, my waiting does not look like sitting at home waiting. My waiting is out here living my best life, living my one life, and so that's a different perception that I think that more singles need to take on about being single. Being single does not mean you need to isolate yourself. Being single does not mean you need to be alone all the time. You can participate in activities with others. Gabe was saying about going to social events was for singles, business events. You need to be out, and who knows, the man or the woman that, may be your potential husband or wife may be at these events. But if you're just sitting in the house, you're not doing anything, you have to start breaking out of okay, I'm gonna just sit at the house and wait. And what are we waiting on? What are we waiting on? I mean, you only have one life. So what are you waiting on? Why are you just sitting at the house? So I know that some people, like for me, I can't speak for everyone, but I'm an extrovert. So I don't know if anyone on the panel, if you're an introvert, if you have some suggestions for the introverts. But as an extrovert, I'm gonna be outside anyway. I'll be outside by myself. I'm not waiting on anybody. That's one of my hashtags on my travel page. Actually on my personal page too. I hashtag do not wait on anyone. Like death has really changed me over the last 3 years. I was already traveling and doing things locally, but I do not wait on anyone. Singles. This is where I'm tapping into a few advice and suggestions or tips. Go out and do things. If it's with family, friends, one suggestion I have, I'm going to get some actual good, I think, suggestions. So, there's an app called Eventbrite. If you don't have that app on your phone, put it on your phone. So I'm going to give some actual, where I know we was talking biblical, but let's talk some, There's an app called Eventbrite. Put that on your phone. What that app does is show you local events in your area, a variety of local events. Not all of them are worldly or whatever. You can find good business, social networking events on that app. It'll give you you can filter it. It'll give you cities and state, because check this, I travel a lot. I sometimes when I'm traveling, I pull up Eventbrite. I don't just attend things in Dallas, Texas. Oh no. I attend events in different cities and states because I go to that app and I pull up events that are going on. Some of them are low cost, and there's sometimes free events like networking, business events. Use that as a resource. That's one resource. Another resource, there's an app. I'm not trying to be short with this, but I'm trying to give good, helpful information that hopefully this helps someone. There's an app. Let's say you like restaurants. Treat yourself to a meal. Stop waiting on a man to pay for your $30 meal. Ladies, treat yourself to a meal. If you can't treat yourself to a meal, go treat yourself to a dessert. You stop waiting. Go out. There's an app called Yelp, YELP. That app shows you a lot of the restaurants and gives you reviews for a lot of the restaurants. It's called Yelp, YELP. It gives you reviews for restaurants, and you can look through in different cities and states. Look at the reviews, find a good place, because you may be like, oh, I don't know where to go. I'm helping you out right now. I'm giving you a good suggestion. Treat yourself to a meal, men and women. Stop waiting. Why are you waiting? Stop waiting. That's one of my main things. Do not wait on anyone, whether you're doing things locally, domestic, or international. You need to live your one life. Tomorrow is not promised. You may not even get married. I'm just going to be honest. Tomorrow is not promised. No one, whether you single or married. Go live your one life now. Try to start doing things, whether they're alone or with others, but there's so many things that go on, especially if you're in some of the big cities, or take a 2-hour drive somewhere, do a road trip, learn more about yourself. Sometimes you're focusing on getting a man, and you don't even know anything past your favorite color and what type of food you like. What else do you like besides where you want to go eat at? you need to know some things about yourself. What do you like? What are you passionate about? And what can you talk to someone about besides just hello, how you doing? Good morning. How was your day? Learn yourself. And I'm just about learn what you like. Even the love languages. Most of us have heard of them. Figure out which one is more based on you. Now, I do, like I mentioned, I'm okay. I do want to eventually get married again. But in the meantime, let me tell you, check this. I am not waiting for that to happen. I'm out here enjoying my one life. Go out here and treat yourself to a meal. Stop waiting on a man to pay for that meal. Go, ladies, go take yourself out to dinner. Buy yourself a flight if you have the money. Treat yourself to a trip somewhere. Stop waiting on the man to take you places. Go and take yourself somewhere. If you can afford it, stop waiting on him to do stuff. And that's another thing I want to unpack. Because I hear a lot of things about the financial aspect. To be honest, I've experienced a lot of beautiful places as a single woman being single than I did when I was married. When I was married, I traveled a little bit, but I travel more being single, and it's not because of just the flexibility of it. It's the financial part of it too, because sometimes as a married couple, some married couples can't even travel as much as you can, financially, because they may have more financial responsibilities than a single. But obviously, as a single person, you still have more responsibilities, and they're just on you. But figure out a way, men and women, because I know some men that they don't go to the movies or they don't go to the restaurant by themselves. Men as well. I'm just gonna suggest learn more about yourself. This is not just a women thing. Men need to learn more about themselves. What do you like? What type of cologne or hygiene products, just different stuff. What do you like? What do you like besides just texting a woman and telling her good morning? And ladies as well, put some depth into asking questions from men. Ask questions. And that's all I have. I know I'm going over, but please look up those two apps. There's one last one. There's several Facebook social groups that you can join for your area. Just Google, just search in, put your city, and then put social group or something like that. And you may find something locally that you could be involved with. And volunteer. Volunteer your time somewhere. Even if it's not in church, you should be volunteering somewhere. I volunteer for domestic violence every once in a while because I'm a domestic violence advocate. And so do something for someone else. You should be giving of your time. And for me, that has helped me remain, I'm humble, especially since I've traveled to some of these countries that, it's like even the little kids be out asking for money. And so it really opens my eyes to things. That's why I encourage, if you can afford it, women and men, travel somewhere. If you have not traveled, do it. Whether it's locally, domestic, international, do something for yourself. Do not wait on a potential husband or a potential wife to do something for yourself. Buy yourself a new shirt if you can afford it. Do something. I'm just saying. I'm done.
Go on and take yourself to Wendy's and get you a 4-for-4 and quit playing games, man. Okay, I'm done.
No, I'm sure that the singles will appreciate, those suggestions, and so it's all good. Go ahead, JB.
What's the question again? Go ahead with that.
The question is, you want to provide, right, some encouragement to singles, and do you think that in these present days and times, well, check it out. In these present days and times, do you think that marriage is still viewed as a benefit or a detriment? So you want to answer that question, and then encouragement, if you can provide some, and then we'll end it.
From my experience, from what I've seen, marriage is definitely a good thing. You know what I mean? And given its proper perspective. Now, a lot of times, just to speak on the other side, a lot of times people like to look at marriages saying, hey, look, 50% of marriages end in divorce. In some cases, it's more than that. And I'm going to use Gabe's analogy about this plane. Okay. You have to look and see how people take care of themselves and how they take care of others around them. Let me ask you a question. Would you get on an airplane if it was held together with duct tape and glue? You know what I mean? It don't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this plane gonna crash. You see what I'm saying? But at the same time, if anybody's ever been on an airplane, just to talk about the travel, you know that those pilots go through a checklist. You know what I mean? They flip them switches. They make sure everything's all right. They check the tire pressure. You know what I mean? They check all the gauges. They clear the tower for takeoff. You know what I mean? That type of thing. The destination is set. You know what I mean? That, my friends, is a plane I want to get on. You know why? Because that particular pilot and that particular crew were working together and said, hey, look, we're going to be in the air. We got to make sure we check, because we can't pull over for gas in the middle of the air now. We can't do that. That's not how airplanes work. You know what I'm saying? Not commercial airplanes, at least. The military, they can do that, but not commercial airplanes. That's not what that's built for. We got to start treating marriage like that pilot that checks all the gauges and make sure that everything works properly and understand the proper context for marriage. And I think a lot of times people get into marriages and they don't understand the proper context of marriage. Marriage is a vehicle to get you to the destination that you need to get to. You know what I mean? You actually enjoy the journey where you're going. But the thing about it is you got to make sure you got somebody you don't mind traveling with. You know what I mean? You can't go in the mid trip and just kick him out the car and be like, I don't like you no more, that type of thing. You know what I'm saying? But my whole thing is this: make sure you prepare. And in that preparedness, make sure you understand why you're getting married. Make sure everybody's on the same page. You're going into the same direction. And I think a lot of times in marriages, people don't pull out the map and say, hey, this is where we're going. It's a free for all. We're all over the place. You know what I mean? My thing is this: if you get with somebody that actually likes to do things that you like to do, the trip is a whole lot easier. A lot of times people like to talk about marriages being hard, not the marriages that I've seen. You know what I mean? My grandparents were married for like 80 some odd years, man. And it was a beautiful thing, because there were times when my grandmother did things for my grandfather. There were times that my grandfather did for my grandmother. You know, to watch that interaction was a beautiful thing for me, because it gave me a clue and a context without them telling me, hey, this is how you take care of your wife, or this is how you take care of your husband. Because a lot of times when you have 12 kids, you don't have time to be, breaking everything down. But kids learn by looking, you know what I mean? And I'm so glad my mom didn't wait till she was 80 years old or 50 years old to have me. She had me when she was 24, 25 years old. And I appreciate my dad for stepping up and doing what he had to do. In that, I'm grateful because I was able to meet my grandfathers. I was able to meet my grandmothers. I was able to meet my great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers. And for that wisdom to be passed down, because there's conversations I've had with my great-granddaddy that I wouldn't have had if my mom had pursued her career over a family. And I'm going to tell you this. Another thing, too, you have to think about. There's some things that we don't always think about. There's times I've taken my mom to the doctor because my dad passed away. God bless his soul. But that's the reason why you have children, to take care of you. And a lot of times we get short-sighted and we say, hey, you know what? I can do this and I can do that. Time going to catch up with you eventually. You know what I mean? And you're going to have to make sure that you put something in place to make sure your legacy carries you on. There's going to be a time in a day where you're not going to be able to run as fast as you used to run. There's going to be a time of day where you're not going to be able to jump out of that bed like you used to jump out of that bed. You know what I mean? And sometimes you're not always going to be enclosed in your right mind like you normally do. I've seen it over time, how things slip. You know what I mean? We take for granted in our youth that we're always going to be the same. But I know for a fact, time comes for us all. You know what I mean? And God will claim each and every soul. So my thing is this: while you're here, make sure that you go about your Father's business and love someone other than yourself. You know what I mean? I can't tell you how many times I've stayed up late at night talking to somebody because they needed an ear. I can't tell you how many times I've loaned somebody some money because they miscalculated their paycheck. You know what I mean? I can't tell you how many times somebody has been there for me when I misstepped and I miscalculated. You see what I'm saying? And my thing is this, I want to make sure that you leave here today knowing the purpose of marriage. The purpose of marriage is to be there for one another, to take life's lessons and learn them together, and to build a legacy, and to make sure that your marriage is an example of God's love for us demonstrated here on earth. You see what I'm saying? So my thing is this, and I want to leave y'all with this. Make sure that God is at the center of your life. He is your compass. He is your direction. He will order your steps. And my thing is don't listen to the world, because the world will lie to you. They'll tell you God is not important. They'll tell you Jesus is not important. They'll tell you that marriage fails. I'm here to tell you God never fails. He's never failed. As long as I've been living, every situation I've ever been through, he's always been waiting for me on the other side. You know what I mean? I was either going in a storm, coming out of a storm, or walking through a storm. God was there every step of the way. You know what I'm saying? My thing is this. He said, I will be with you even in the valley of the shadows of death. I will be there for you no matter what. And if we even demonstrate a small portion of that, I promise you, your marriage will be that much, much, much greater. And I'll leave you with this, and I'll wrap this thing up. God, it's been an awesome live tonight. And I want to thank you, Tamel, and the other panelists and the people who are listening tonight. Thank you guys for sharing and spending a little time with us. And I hope we get a chance to do this one more time, because it's definitely a conversation that needs to be had. If you guys want to reach out, I'm usually on YouTube, Lost in Translation podcast. I'm usually live on Friday nights at 8:30 p.m. If you want to have a good time, come over and join us, and we'll talk about different things. It doesn't always have to be about this, that, and the other. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you just want to add out, just add out. We can do that. That's what that platform is for. Thank you, guys. God bless you, and you guys have a good evening.
Man, Jared, bro, I'm retiring from preaching, brother. I ain't preaching no more. So you want to come preach for me tomorrow night, you can, man.
I got you.
Yes, sir. A great job of breaking everything down. Great
collection
point.
plate.
Yeah, I think everybody did
Collection plate
of dropping some jewels and some gems, and so I think that was a beautiful way to end. I'll just leave you guys with my 3 S's of compatibility. Just make sure that you're spiritually compatible with someone. Make sure that you're socially compatible with someone, and make sure that you're sexually compatible with someone. I'm not saying commit the act and have sex. I'm just saying have that conversation, have an in-depth conversation about sex. Make sure that the person has a sincere personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and get with somebody that you can have fun with, have a good time with, enjoy your life, have a good time. And I love what JB said, I once was young, but now I'm old. But I've never seen the righteous forsaken or seed begging bread. That's real. So God will take care of you. I would just say be intentional in your dating process to get to that process of marriage. Make sure that you're healed, you're a whole person. If you need therapy, make sure that you get therapy. It's okay to see a therapist, to see a counselor. Put prayer and therapy on your life. I think it's very important. And the last thing, I just believe that you should just continuously seek God and know your purpose. And I believe that God will give you discernment on who to choose and who to be with when it comes to dating and making that long-lasting decision of being with somebody for a lifetime. So I think that's wonderful. Before I go, thank you guys. I want to thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, Dr. Elena. Thank you, Gabe. Thank you, Jared, for being special guests. I appreciate your perspectives, your wisdom. Thank you. This has been wonderful. And thank you out there for being tuned in. Thank you so much for tuning in. And you stayed with us for almost 2 hours, and I appreciate it. So I know if you stayed with us for 2 hours, the conversation was good, and I believe it was good. Last thing, I know JB gave his last words of how to get a hold of him. I'll give you as well, Gabe, Elena, and Rochelle. How can people connect with you and get a hold of you or book you?
So you can book me several ways. So my Instagram is Gabe_Mustard. You can reach out to me there. I do respond to DMs and requests. Also, Plugged In Ministries is the name of my ministry that God has given to me. You can find me on Facebook as Gabe Abram. And also with that, if you miss any of my lives or anything like that, they are always, and I mean always, up on my page for playback.
Michelle.
Yeah, I'm Apologetics in the City on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then Rochelle Bryant on Facebook. So I always meet plenty of people. I'm friendly. Say hi.
All right, Dr. Lena.
Okay, so I can be found on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube under Sunshine Travels for Life, and then on Facebook, you can find me, Empowered Walker. So either one of those two, but Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Sunshine Travels for Life, and Facebook, Empowered Walker. That's it.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think this was great. Thank you guys so much once again for being a part of the discussion. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Thank you all. And so that's it. So once again, catch us soon. I'm Elder Tamel Brown of Fruit Bear Ministries. Look out for the new book coming out, How to Get Over a Breakup. Look out for new music coming really soon before this year is over. And so a lot going on, a lot happening. So stay abreast. My Facebook page, my Instagram, and also YouTube. And so God bless you guys. We love you with the love of the Lord Jesus. And you guys take care. Blessings. Peace.